Welcome to the Massage Room with Dave and Kai. I'm Dave.
I'm Kai.
And today we are talking about what brought us into the massage profession. Mm-hmm. So I thought this would be an interesting way to kind of like break the ice and start getting to know our audience, for them to get to know us a little bit.
Yeah.
And just get a sense of kind of like where we're coming from, because it's a big, wide world of massage out there. Mm-hmm. So Kai, why don't you take it away?
Okay. So for me, I grew up with a bunch of dirty hippies down in Texas. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive a little bit, but it's a thing down there. And I come from a long line of barbers, which I don't know if y'all know this, but most barbers it's considered a trade. You don't go to college, you go to a trade school for it. In Texas, it's 1,500 hours to be a barber. And with just how I was raised, we grew up doing energy work, things like that. That was always something that was kind of in my life as a thing. My mom's best friend through pretty much my entire childhood, and probably still until this point, if she would still be alive, was a chiropractor. So like I grew up getting adjustments all the time. Like she would come over and just hang out, and I'd be like, oh, this feels weird. And she'd, adjust me. So body work has always just kind of been a thing that's been around. And when I was starting to finish high school, my mom was like, you either, need to get a real job or go to school for something. It doesn't have to be college. It can be a trade school, like go to hair school so you can take over my business. And I was like, I don't want to be knuckle deep in people's hair for the rest of my life. That does not sound fun. And my neighbors at the time were, I'm pretty sure, like a lesbian commune living in an apartment. It was a group of like 6 different lesbians all living in a 3-bedroom apartment. I'm pretty sure they were all dating each other. It was a hoot and a holler. I would go over and cook for them, and we would just hang out. It was a blast. One of them was a massage therapist, and she was like, check this out. This could be fun. I was like, okay, cool. That's something to think about. And in high school, one of my mom's friends was the chairperson for the Texas chapter of the AMTA. Been a practicing therapist for as long as my friend had been alive. And like we were at an orchestra event and we were just chatting, and I was like, mentioned that was something I was thinking about doing, because she'd asked like where I was going to go to school. Mm-hmm. And we had like a really interesting conversation about it. And I was just like, this actually sounds like a lot of fun. Like the school I went to initially was $6,000 for tuition and books. That was the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about going to UT for music as a violin major, which would have been like $6,000 per semester for just classes. Yeah. So I was like, at the end of the day, I'll do massage. Like I'll go to school for it. If I don't like it, worst case scenario, the money pays for all the body work I got in school. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what started me on it. And from there, I started learning more. Like when I started school, I didn't know you could massage legs. Like when I saw that on our like class thing, I was just like, oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. My, being a little 18-year-old, not knowing anything about the world. And like, as we started going through the program, we learned like kinesiology, and the class that really stuck out for me was postural assessments. Mm-hmm. Like we were taking all of our anatomy and kinesiology and learning about different diverse groups and things like that. We were bringing it together to learn how people move and learn how to spot and address the dysfunction in people's movements. Mm-hmm. That's when I was just like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. Yeah. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what really spurred that focus for me for wanting to do more clinically focused work. And yeah, that's kind of why I got into massage. And like, that was like my big turning point. What about you?
It's so funny because I came from such a different background, but once I was in massage, it was very much the same thing for me. It was kinesiology class that it hooked me. So I grew up in Southwest Georgia, very rural, very conservative. And my whole family has either been in the medical profession in some way or came from the military background. So, my members of my family represent every branch of the military except the Air Force. Mm-hmm. We've got some physicians, but we have a lot of nurses. We have a lot of medical billers. We have a lot of insurance. people, insurance underwriters, things like that. So, but in the medical profession, my family has been all up and down, either medical or military. I came out as gay at 14 years old in South Georgia. Suffice it to say, the military was not going to be the option for me. So
and this was during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Oh, yeah. I graduated high school in 2005. So, and I came out my sophomore year. So this would have been like 2002. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Plumb in the middle of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Gay marriage was not a thing. There was still a robust debate going on whether or not it should be allowed. Mm-hmm. But all this to say, obviously military wasn't going to be the route for me, which looking at the family, traits and everything would have pushed me into the medical field. But I was a bit young and kind of a teenager, and I was a bit lazy, and the thought of going to medical school just seemed like a big thing, and I didn't really want to do it. So, but I did already have like a burgeoning love of anatomy and like the human body. Shortly after I graduated high school, I got certified as a yoga instructor. Again, this is South Georgia. So, I was probably the only male yoga instructor within a 300 mile. Let's just say it was an interesting field to enter. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the yoga classes and yoga instructing just deepened my love of the body and my curiosity about movement. And what we learn muscles and kind of basically what they do, go through the program to be trained as a yoga instructor didn't really give you a whole lot of anatomy. Yeah. Also, this was before the Yoga Alliance was a real thing, before like yoga teacher training had become really institutionalized and whatnot. So this little 20-something-year-old Dave in South Georgia with a burgeoning passion for the body and a piece of paper that says I can teach yoga, realized pretty quickly I got to get out of the small town. I got to get out of the sticks of Georgia. So I moved to the Tampa Bay area. And this was where, new town, new surroundings. And I was really able to kind of start asking myself like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Like, world's your oyster now. You're in a big city with no limits, So I floundered around for a year, just waited tables, and I worked at like a department store part-time, just nothing really important, until just it kind of bubbled over, it came to a head, and I was like, I gotta make a decision. Like, I need to do something. What's it gonna be? Mm-hmm. And so if we're being honest and we're speaking our truths, mm-hmm. I went to a psychic. I was a little building on the side of the road. You go in and pay $20-$25. They did a little palm reading thing. And basically my question was, I'm just at a point and I don't know what to do. And the psychic, did a palm reading and a tarot card reading. And she was like, you're really, it's easy for you to connect to people. You need to be in a job that allows you to connect to people. Have you considered massage therapy? And I'll be honest, when I left that psychic, I was driving home and I was kind of like snarkily like laughing to myself, and I was like, massage therapy. Like, what a foo-foo thing. Isn't that what rich white women do when they've got more money than they know what to do with? They go buy a massage. And I literally laughed about it on my way home. But, I didn't just write it off. I thought about it. And the more I thought about it, I realized I don't actually know what massage therapy is. Mm-hmm. It was not a thing in South Georgia. It was just not something you saw every day. This was before massage envy was everywhere. Yeah. So massage was really this obscure luxury,
like ethereal concept more than anything.
Yeah, it was like just a concept. It's like a thing that like bougie white people did, but it never occurred to me. Now that I'm living in a big city in Florida, very big Tampa Bay area, metropolitan, this might be an option. So I just started looking into it. I looked up what the massage profession was all about. I read about the kinds of things massage therapists were able to do for their clients. And remember, I knew nothing of this. So the more I read, I was like, whoa, massage therapists can do this too? Oh, you mean we've got to know anatomy and like like we've got to take classes on pharmacology and know something about drug interactions, and we've got to know something about kinesiology and the nervous system, and a business class here. Like,
it's not just rubbing lotion on someone.
So much more than I had like conceptualized massage therapy being. And that just, once I was down that rabbit hole, there was no turning back. The next avenue of that research was finding massage schools. And much like you said, the school that I ended up picking was relatively inexpensive. The period of schooling was like 5 or 6 months. The whole program was, 600 hours.
See, that's interesting.
Was done in just a few months, and it was not expensive. I think my whole tuition was somewhere like $12,000.
That's not bad.
So market in Florida is different than market in Texas, but still $12,000 is what some people pay for a semester of college. Exactly. And that was my whole thing. Kit, caboodle, like everything.
Yeah. See, I find it interesting that you actually like went and researched everything before enrolling. I kind of just jumped in feet first. I was just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
No, I'm very much a researcher.
Yeah, like I definitely am now. But like even when because I got my yoga teacher certificate in 2020, enrolled before the pandemic, and we had to do the transition of teaching in person versus teaching online. During all of that with a bunch of yoga teachers who are, I love them with all of my heart.
But they're not computer people.
They aren't. And it was entertaining in the beginning sometimes.
You should have seen us at my school in Florida when COVID hit. I was the dean of a trade school, and we had 5 different educational programs, one of which was massage therapy, naturally. But a couple others, just for reference, were cosmetology, barber, and skincare. So how do you teach estheticians to do facials, or teach a cosmetologist or a barber how to do a haircut online? It was crazy. It was crazy.
Like with my yoga teacher program, I just jumped in. I had been doing yoga for like 3 months, got offered a full ride scholarship, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm doing this. But yeah, no, I did not research at all. I was just like, okay, I think I know about this, and like all the stuff that you learned that massage therapists could do.
Yeah.
I was learning in the moment in the classroom. I was like, oh, you mean we can actually like do more than just rubbing lotion on people? That's cool. Awesome. Let's learn how to do that.
The big eye-opener for me was when I realized it's called massage therapy because it's therapy. Like we really help people, reduce pain. Like there are real outcomes to massage therapy. We reduce pain, we reduce muscle tension, we increase range of motion, we increase well-being, we lower stress level. I mean, all these things that now we're in the profession, we all know these things.
Yeah.
But for me going into it, I genuinely didn't know any of that stuff. I legitimately thought massage began and ended in some high-end hotel spa where they're rubbing mud on you and they rub oil, and that was, you get cucumbers over your eyes. That it all got lumped in together. Like that was all massage therapy to me. So once I finished school and everything, or not finished school. Once I was, enrolled in massage school and really starting to get a deeper idea of not just what we are going to learn in school and what we're able to do, but what, as a therapist, as you keep growing in the profession, what you will eventually become capable of doing. It's one thing to see your fellow students grow in school and develop their skills. But then when one of the teachers comes in and lays some real skill down, like that was what kept inspiring me was, not only do we have all these cool things that we can learn how to do, but it just keeps going.
Yeah.
It just keeps going.
It's turtles all the way down.
All the way down. But I've always been, a people person. I'm not the kind of person that I don't do well with numbers first and foremost. So any kind of math thing was just out of the question for me.
Yeah.
But I'm much more of a people person, and I like connecting to people and I like helping people. And that was probably the biggest push to me that massage therapy was the right choice for me, because I was able to truly help people, not superficially, like, waiting tables, not through customer service. Thank you for what you've done, but to genuinely, truly help someone else. that was just the thing that attracted me the most, and that's still the thing that I think I find most satisfying about it.
Yeah. No, I definitely can empathize with that. Being a massage therapist, like we're all empathetic. That's just how we are. But like actually being able to have someone come in and have them be in so much pain for such a long time, and being able to offer them at least a little bit of relief, either in the moment or like even up to days or weeks after their appointment, is such a rewarding feeling.
Yeah.
And being able to facilitate that space for them. I don't know about you, but it does so much for like my self-confidence and self-worth, and like how much I can like actually affect in the world.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to do this kind of work, and it's even more of a privilege to be working in a field where we truly feel like you've been called to do this. Like, I don't know very many people who would say, I felt it was a calling to go into venture capitalism, or I felt it was called to, go into like financial planning or whatever, financial forecasting or something like that. But like massage therapy, and I've taught in massage schools for years. I've helped hundreds of massage students through my career. I've obviously dealt with thousands of other massage therapists in my career. Yeah. And that's the thing that seems to really bind all of us together is, it's more so than almost any other profession. You find people who feel like they were called to do this, that they massage is something bigger than themselves, which I think is really amazing.
I agree.
And I think it's really rare for a profession to have something like that. So when you find something, it just makes it that much more precious.
Yeah.
So
yeah, being able to just do that is so nice.
Yeah. It's really rewarding.
It is.
So speaking of rewarding, now that we've laid down how we got into the profession, now I want to ask you, what's keeping you here? So you've been doing this for 10 years. Why haven't you hung up the holster yet?
13 years.
13 years.
You're welcome. 3 years are important. For me, so I have ADHD. I found out over the pandemic, whenever I was locked at home all day, every day with my own thoughts, like I am aggressively neurodivergent. And one of the things that I love about doing massage is when you're working with a client, especially in a therapeutic sense, you have to be paying attention to so many things at once. Like their respiratory rate, whether or not they're having muscle twitches or they're having digestive noises, what the actual soft tissue is doing underneath your hands, any way that you can make the room more comfortable for them. If you notice like a slight chill to their skin when you're working with them, like offer to turn the table heater on or offer to turn the room heater up or something, like having to focus on all of that simultaneously is like, I've worked in other industries as well. I've had side jobs. I worked in various retail positions over the years and customer service and things like that. And nothing forces me to utilize my brain as much as I do or as I can by doing massage. Because you just have to pay attention to everything simultaneously. And it can feel a little overwhelming in the beginning of your career, even the beginning of your day. Like some days when I start, I'm like, oh God, I'm not paying attention to all of the things. What's going on? I'm so confused, until I can kind of like settle in a little more. That doesn't happen too much now because I know how to like ground into my work. But yeah, that's one of the things that definitely keeps me engaged in the industry. Another one is every appointment being entirely different. Like you could have two clients coming in back to back, both having shoulder pain, like between the shoulder blades, base of the neck, like that levator muscle that a lot of
right there, you guys, you know that one right there.
That one where people are just like, I'm crunchy right here. Can you just like stick your elbow in? Like, yes, that might be the muscle that's screaming at them, but what's the cause? Is it their scalenes? Is it their subscapularis? Is it a destabilization with the infraspinatus of the rotator cuff? Is it their QL throwing their deep front line and superficial back line out of balance, causing them to contort their spine in an interesting way? Like every appointment is entirely different, even if everyone's coming in with the exact same issue, quote unquote. Yeah. Like it's so interesting to just track and notice all of these things that are happening. And once you are more established as a therapist and you've had your hands on enough bodies, you can just start seeing it. in how they move and how they interact. And even just when you're like doing a resting stroke on their back or something like that, you can feel the fascial lines and the muscular lines as they tense up and how things are contorted. And for me, I have comorbid ADHD dyslexic. And one of the things that's interesting about people with dyslexia is our ability to render things in our minds three-dimensionally is astounding, apparently. I don't know. This has just always been my baseline. Like, I can render a full human musculoskeletal system in my brain and like contract the muscles and lengthen the muscles and do all of these things just with my brain, like those anatomy apps that a lot of massage teachers use. I know you're really fond of them. I use them. Yeah. They're great. I essentially have that in my brain constantly, that I can just see the client, put the anatomy figure in that same position and be like, okay, these muscles are tight. This is going to be something going on here. There's going to be a dysfunction in the foot from the shoulder thing. Like, I can tie all of that in my brain. And I've not found anything else that can engage me that much.
It's going to be really helpful to be able to visualize the system that you're working on, because I guess I would compare it to working on a very muscular client. It's uncommon in our profession that you get a body on your table where you can see the whole musculature. Most of us maybe have just a few extra pounds, or not that we're overweight, but we're not, working out. So your body tends to just be a bit smoother, just a bit softer. So the muscles just aren't as defined. I can imagine the advantage being able to really visualize, regardless of the body type. Once you get your hands on there, you really visualize, what's under your hands, what you're working on, what you're touching. Yeah. I would say I've gotten better as the years, went on, at doing something like that, at visualizing it. But teaching with those anatomy apps and things certainly helps me. I've been doing massage now for 2011, so this is my 12th year. That's not right. What? Crazy making. So yeah, I've been doing massage professionally for 12 years. I've worked in spas. I've worked in chiropractic and wellness clinics. I've taught massage therapy as a part-time instructor, as a full-time instructor. I've managed a massage therapy program. I was dean of academics for a massage school. I was director of education for a massage school. So my experience as a massage therapist is a bit different than what I would say is the typical therapist. Mainly just because my experience has given me so much more kind of administrative, more of an administrative perspective. But the one thing that I would say more than anything else that keeps me in the field is massage therapy as a profession allows me, David Holden, to just stay like my authentic, honest self. I don't feel like I have to put on a front or project an image or play a character because like I'm a massage therapist and this is just who I am and it's just what I do. And it was important for me to have a profession that allows me to be my authentic self. Most of the jobs that I've had in the past really didn't allow me to do that.
You're always having to like edit and cut out pieces of your personality to fit the narrative that your job wants.
So, and some jobs to a more or lesser extent than others, but massage therapy consistently has allowed me to just be my authentic self. In South Georgia, being a gay man was a challenge. Once I moved to Florida, it was much less of a challenge, but there was still, I am a gay male. So as a massage therapist, what is this gay male going to do to me? The client would wonder, and I've had female clients who, just because I'm a male, flat out do not want me as their massage therapist. I've had straight men who, when I'm gay, they don't want me working on them. But those clients have been far, far fewer than the clients who, see me for who I am, value me for what I'm able to do for them. And just at the end of the day, I'm a professional massage therapist. So at the end of the day, what's happening on the table is only therapeutic for the client's benefit. Yeah. And despite the perceived challenges, and I think I made it maybe a bit harder on myself in my head than the reality was. But the reality has been I've been able to grow and sustain thriving clienteles in just about every location that I've worked in over the course of my career. So being able to be authentic and then just being able to call on, like you were saying, visualizing the body is just a skill you have. Massage therapy calls on my innate skills. It calls on the training that I've gone through, the experience that I have. And at the end of the day, I wanted to go into this profession because I wanted to be able to help people. And 12 years later, like I do still, I am still currently helping people. How I've been able to help them has grown and evolved over the course of my career. I think many students in the beginning, you're still kind of getting your hands under you, still getting your feet under you. You fall into a routine a lot of times. So I feel like in the earliest years of my career, I wasn't as effective of a therapist as I could have been. But most of that I just chalk up to inexperience, just good-natured inexperience. Now in my career, like I said, I've done so many different things within our profession. I think all of them have led to me being better on the table. They've led to me being a better massage therapist. But now I'm not just able to help clients. I've taught massage students and I've helped them master the basics that they need to go take the NBLEX, which is a really freaking hard test. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But I've had hundreds of students who have passed their NBLEX and have gone on to get their license and become colleagues. It's a thing. It's a big thing when the student graduates and I get to call them colleague for the first time. I've gotten more than one shed some tears when that moment happens. It's very, very emotional, very powerful. But I've been able to help students. I've been able to help clients. I've been able to help business owners. Teaching massage, business consulting. Like here, we're recording a podcast. What? This is blowing my mind at how many people we might be able to reach, and it just because our profession helps by putting hands on people. This is still a profession that lets us help people even if we don't lay hands on them. So,
I definitely feel that
it's an amazing profession. That's really why I'm still here.
It really is. One thing I wanted to piggyback on is, piggyback on something that I said. Was going back to the ADHD thing. A lot of us neurodivergent people have trouble finding professions and careers and jobs that can either stimulate us enough mentally or not enough to where we can autopilot it. And I feel like doing massage is definitely one that will stimulate you enough to engage everything. Like I love it because I can hyper focus. Like I definitely have one of the ADHD variants of hyper focus, and that is something that I absolutely do every time I'm in session with someone. Is I just zone in and I'm like, this is what's going on. This is my plan of attack, and just like it gives me a place to channel that. In a way that's useful. Because if not, like this was really, really glaringly obvious to me during the pandemic, and what actually made me seek out a diagnosis was, if not, I'll just hyper focus on Reddit or on Wikipedia and learn a whole bunch of useless information, which doesn't really do anything. Like I learn more info. That's cool. I like being a walking encyclopedia, but at the same time, like this profession gives me a way to do that and actually cause a positive change in the world.
I agree. I would agree with that for sure. I've definitely gotten better over the years at honing that focus. being able to really hyper focus in on clients. It's the biggest challenge is just holding your attention for that full session, not letting your hands go into autopilot and letting your mind kind of wander, but just really the whole session staying present and staying focused on the work and what you're doing. And if you think it's hard to do it for one client,
imagine doing it all day.
Imagine doing it all day long, hour after hour. It's challenging, but that's what makes it a profession. It's the challenge.
Yeah, one thing that I'll do in those situations where I'm having like trouble, like I'm noticing my focus slipping, is I'll create these weird arbitrary rules for myself when I'm doing my work. Like I can't use the palm of my hands. So anytime I'm doing palm work, I'm using the tops of my hands, which is great because then you are utilizing different muscles. So you reduce your chances of overuse injuries. It also forces you to think in a slightly different way of like when I'm doing my effleurage, instead of doing palm down, I'm doing palm up. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can go in with broad contact and do forearm fascial spreading here and things like that. And you start to learn new approaches and new techniques and things like that. So that's something that I do to help with that focus slip. Mind you, that's not relevant to every appointment. Some people are like, I can only handle the lightest pressure. And like, that's okay. Cool. I'll do like fingertip work in weird ways that I haven't done it before and see if that is, something that helps.
It's so interesting to me in our profession how I will have one client who I've got the table virtually on the floor and, I'm putting every ounce of my body weight onto this one little point on their shoulder. And then you get down there and you just like completely stretch them out and all this stuff. And then the next client would be something like a lymphatic drainage. You're using very light, very rhythmic. It's very repetitive. And all of this is massage.
Yeah.
And if you're qualified to do all the different things,
of course.
But that can be your day of like bouncing between the extremes of, neuromuscular or sports massage. And then you get into the gentler techniques, craniosacral or lymphatic or even Reiki, like non-contact. The breadth of what we're able to do. And then if you find something you really like, the depth that you can drill into it. If lymphatic drainage is your thing, you can go take like a 4 or 8 hour class on lymphatic drainage. You can also take a 400-hour class on lymphatic drainage and like master that crap.
Find what things do.
There's just so much stuff to do in this field. I mean, I feel like if you're bored, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Because either you take some classes and grow your skills, or think about another way that you could be of service in this field. Like I started teaching at a massage school part-time just to fill in some time that I had in my schedule. And I don't think I knew this at the time, or maybe I did. But the skill sets that go along with being a really effective teacher also just happened to be skill sets that I was naturally very talented at. So my first like step into the classroom was, it was like slipping into a warm pool. I just slipped right in, and it took me no time to kind of get my bearings. I actually won an award for it. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I won an award for teaching. I was the 2017-2018 school year Educator of the Year for the Florida Association of Post-Secondary Schools and Colleges. That was me. So for all of the colleges, post-high school in the state of Florida, they have an association. And for all of them, there were 2 people that were selected for Educator of the Year. There was one from a degree-granting institution. This particular year, it was from Full Sail University. She was a screenwriting professor. Yes. She used to write for television shows for Nickelodeon, like Kenan and Kel and shows like that back in the day. We were on the same stage together. She won Educator of the Year for a degree-granting institution, and mine was for a non-degree granting. And that's my awesome award-winning story.
I love that. Yeah. I've taken his classes. He's a fantastic teacher.
She's probably exaggerating. So you've been doing this as long as I have, Kai. What would you say is the biggest life lesson you've learned through your career? What life lesson has massage brought to you?
That you never know where people are in their recovery process or stage of life.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
One thing that not every client will process things at you in session. I like to say that instead of processing with you, because you're a massage therapist, you can't help them process emotions. That's way outside of your scope of practice in pretty much every state. And two, like, a lot of times they just need someone to talk to. Like, you don't actually have to give responses. They just need someone to
listen.
Yeah, to just sit there and hold space with them. Is like, you will assume that the most bougie presenting affluent white blonde lady in her shiny new Jaguar has like everything figured out in life. She's doing all of the things right. Well, in all actuality, she has nothing. She doesn't know. She's just guessing through the quagmire of life and trying to figure stuff out as she goes, just like everyone else is.
Yeah.
And just seeing clients experience that over and over and over and over again has really just drilled in that, like, none of us know what we're doing. We're just taking it day by day. And I think that a lot of times, a lot of us can kind of be stuck in our own heads, and especially in the time of social media and people posting like their highlights.
Yeah. Like, I would say we're stuck in our own perspectives. A lot of us are just unable to empathize or try to see it from someone else's point of view. Yeah. So you never know what their
process is, like what they're going through.
Where they are in that process.
Exactly. You don't know. And like, I've had a lot of clients who've like been really upset about things that arbitrarily to me seem really, really small and unimportant. And I'm like, why are you throwing a big deal about, like, why are you throwing a fit about this? This doesn't make sense. But like, upon learning more, it's like that was the catalyst that caused the dam to break for everything to come out.
Yeah. The proverbial straw. Yep.
Yeah. And it's definitely caused, me to be a lot more empathetic of a person.
I'd have to agree. Working with clients and teaching massage students, teaching was a big one for me, because what was challenging for me to wrap my head around was any particular concept that is easy for me to understand, easy for me to wrap my head around, is not as easy for everyone else. Yeah. So teaching really kind of forced me into the environment where I can't just say, well, see, it's easy, just do it. Yeah. You really got to check yourself and be able to explain yourself step by step in detail for people who do not know what you're talking about. And as a teacher, your effectiveness is rated on being able to get that message across. Yeah.
Like, I had a really similar epiphany when I started teaching years ago. Yeah. Because before I was even a massage therapist, when I was primarily playing music as my thing, I was a classically trained violinist. I would teach lessons. And even now that I teach massage and things like that, you have to learn how to communicate thoughts and ideas in both incredibly complicated, nuanced, detailed ways, but also in very simple terms that communicate the exact same idea. Like, I was teaching a class last week on assisted stretching. I was certifying a clinic on creating a new service of doing assisted stretching, like add-ons and sessions for their appointments. And most of the therapists in the room had been practicing for like at least 6-7 years. And we were talking about like hamstring stretches. And I was like, okay, you're going to flex the hip with an extended knee, and you are going to bring the leg past the midline. Only like 2 of the therapists knew what I meant. And I'm like, okay, well, because my brain works in very clinical, specific terms. That's just how I am. And I was just like, okay, cool. So this is not clicking. I need to quickly reassess and readdress and change how I'm communicating this idea. So I was like, okay, cool. So you're going to have the hip bent, knee straight. And you're going to bring the leg across to where there's a straight line going from the opposite hip to the ankle. And that kind of communicated that idea. Yeah. In a, really visual way that a lot of people ended up getting. So like, I definitely understand that. It's, you you have to fully understand and comprehend the information if you want to teach it. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I know a lot of therapists who say they want to go back and teach because they remember fondly their days in massage school. We all had a great time in massage school. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
But they think about that and they think that that's what massage school is. So they go back
Not as a
trying
teacher.
to teach or something, maybe to recapture the feeling they had in massage school. Or the other one that I always get is that they worked in the profession and then now they want to give back. They want to come back to the beginning and keep it going. But my observation has generally been that many massage therapists, while technically very skilled at what they're doing, the skill sets that are involved in being an effective teacher or educator are different. These are two different jobs with two different skill sets. And the thing is, none of us massage therapists went to school to be a teacher. We didn't learn how to teach in massage school. We learned how to massage in massage school. We were taught the very, very basics of what we needed to pass the state board exam and get our license so we can go out there and start practicing. And that was the point of massage school.
Yeah.
So having these two separate skill sets, it's one skill set to be an effective therapist, it's a totally different one to be an effective educator or teacher. And finding someone where those skills kind of overlap
is really hard.
Is difficult.
Yeah.
I happen to be someone who, blended the two relatively well, but
I like to think so.
It's challenging.
It is. Yeah.
It's challenging.
So I initially got licensed in Texas, and I moved to Portland, Oregon a couple of years ago, and I had to go back to school for an additional, I think it was like 124 hours or something.
Something like that.
That's actually how I met Dave here.
I was teaching at that school.
Yeah. And like I had Dave, you were teaching kinesiology lowers of like the legs and hips.
Kinesiology of the lower body, hip, leg.
And that class was done wonderfully. Like I actually commented multiple times, like in between classes, I was just like, you and I teach the exact same way. And I love it. And it's fantastic. And it's great. But I had other teachers in that program who I could tell were very skilled, proficient therapists that did not have that skill set.
Well, being in control in the massage room, in general, the client is very submissive. They usually don't put up much of a fight. So for the most part, what you want to do is what happens.
Yeah.
But in the classroom, there's classroom management. There's, teaching pedagogy. There's like the actual process of how you're teaching, what kinds of activities you're doing to reinforce the material. There's a lot more to it. And then when you start getting into, God forbid you have a transfer student. Well, do these academic credits transfer from one institution to another? And like, by and large, massage therapists simply weren't trained in that kind of profession. That is just not what they went to school for. So they simply just don't know how this kind of stuff works. Yeah. They've never been trained to be a teacher. They've never been trained to manage a classroom. So yeah, when you find someone who's, talented at both.
Who has the magic sauce and the magic butter.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like there were actually a couple of teachers in that program who, like, I would always come to class early because I'm an overachiever. And I'd like be chatting with the teacher, and the teacher would be like, I'm having some trouble understanding what's in this lecture as the teacher. And there were a couple of times where I just legitimately offered, I was like, I've taught this content before. Did you want me to step in and do that? Like, I want to ask you now when you're not in front of a class. Like, I don't want to put you on the spot. And I don't want to say you can't do your job or you can't teach. But I have taught this content many times. I can do it in my sleep. Did you want me to step up and do that? And I did a couple of the times. Just because
I would say an effective teacher utilizes the resources they have available. Personally, if I've got a topic to talk about and I happen to have a student who is proficient in that topic, I would be remiss as an educator if I didn't use that opportunity to put them in front of my class.
Yeah. And like, it's hard to find a really good therapist who's also a really good teacher. And I think that's something that a lot of massage schools need to take a better look at when hiring applicants.
I agree. My subsequent reply to that would also be, if you can't find good educators, then you need to make good educators, which means you need to implement training programs for your instructors on how to teach and how to do the things that you expect them to do, like classroom management and
lesson
pacing, how to write a lesson plan, how to effectively evaluate whether your students are understanding the material, right? Not just a test, but give them, some kind of project or a hands-on activity where they are forced to show you that they know what they're doing. And then being able to like properly counsel students, not just through the academic stuff, but being able to counsel students with the challenges they have going on in their lives. And I don't mean offer them mental health therapy, but what I mean is being an advocate for that student so that whatever they have going on outside the classroom, they know that they have your support when it comes time to help them check out of that stuff, check into the classroom and leave the baggage where it belongs. Being able to effectively manage students like that is very similar to managing employees or managing a team of people. So if you can't find someone who has those skills, you got to make them, which means you've got to implement training. And that is one thing that I've seen. That's probably the one place where most massage schools fail, is that they simply don't train. They just hire and throw them in a classroom.
Yeah.
Just hire them and throw them in a classroom. They're licensed. They clearly know what they're doing. But doing massage and teaching massage, two different things.
Very different things.
Two different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, the life lesson you've learned, Kai, was that you never know where someone is in their process.
Yeah.
You never know what they're dealing with. You never know what's really going on behind the scenes. You never know. You just never know. So you gotta, I think that just calls us to be a bit more understanding and empathetic. It's not terribly difficult when you're in the day-to-day and you think about it. But I think the one biggest thing that I've learned, like the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that I've never healed anyone. I help create conditions in the body that facilitate the body healing itself. I reduce muscle tension. I increase circulation. I stretch tight muscle. I calm an activated nervous system. But the lesson is you've got to check your ego. I never claim that I'm a healer or anything like that, because my function is to bring the elements of healing together.
Yeah.
But I don't do the healing. Honestly, the body does that all by itself.
You just set everything up for the body to take control.
I got to take 3 or 4 different elements and I got to bring them into the same room and make sure they're jiving together. But the healing happens within the body, all on its own. Like I said, I'm just facilitating. So maybe the body needs a little less tension in this muscle. Maybe the body needs a little more circulation over here. Maybe the body is kind of closing in and it needs to be stretched out.
Yeah.
But in any event, it's a subtle lesson, and it hurts sometimes when your ego checked and you're like, oh, I know how to do this technique. I've released a piriformis 1,000,000 times. And you get a client on the table and you do your little thing and their piriformis doesn't release. And then what do you do? Because I know what I'm doing, right? I heal people. So what happens when you fail to heal someone? And we tend to take it really personally. That's where the ego check comes in. You can't let your ego get wrapped up with your client outcomes. You can't let your ego get wrapped up in your treatment planning. Ego can be helpful in business, but in my experience in massage, ego is one of the things that we need to keep in check. And we need to really make sure that we keep the priorities clear. The first priority is always the client. And I can't do anything that client isn't on board for.
Yeah.
If they're not there with me mentally, if they're not there with me, just kind of the general vibe, then I'm not going to be able to produce my best work.
Yeah.
And that massage is not going to be as effective as it could have been. There's nothing I can do to directly force the client to be on the same page as me, but they show up on the table. That's their job. You made the appointment, you showed up on time.
Yeah.
My job is to handle everything else, from the environment to the touch, bring all the elements together to allow the body to heal itself, all by itself.
Yeah.
I think it's a very subtle lesson to learn, but I think it's very important, and it's one of the ones that sticks with me throughout my career.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That's like, over the years as I've been practicing and teaching and things like that, the sheer amount of ego that a lot of MTs have around their client outcomes is kind of ridiculous to me. I'm like I was talking to another therapist who, I guess now former therapist, she retired with the pandemic. And her and I were talking about how bodywork is so functionally and just artistically amazing when you entirely remove the ego out of it.
Yeah. I've performed massages where during the course of the session, how do I put this? Kind of in my own mind, I was kind of checked out. Like my conscious, my awareness, like where my head is, was straight up in my hands. I was very much into the work that I was doing, and I didn't really have any extra spare thoughts or anything. Like, I was fully absorbed in what I was doing.
So you were hyper focusing in.
Hyper focused in, for sure. That's when I can get some of my most effective work. Just when I'm really present. But it's to say it's a challenge, I feel like underplays it. It is really freaking hard to master your own mind. And when your brain is really easily distracted, or this is maybe a client that you're not really connected with, or it's a massage that you're like, God, I've done this one a million times. Yeah. It's so easy to just check out, and your mind is suddenly thinking about dinner or your spouse or your boyfriend or whatever's going on, that you go into autopilot. And autopilot massages are rarely very effective.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've, being someone with ADHD, I've absolutely had trouble with that over the years of making sure that my brain doesn't just check out whenever someone comes in with I want upper body only deep tissue for 90 minutes, focusing on between the shoulder blades and the neck. Like, we've all done that massage a million times.
Yep.
And
yeah,
it's hard to keep that focus in sometimes. I definitely agree. Like I said earlier, the thing I do is I create these weird arbitrary rules for myself where I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm going to work the rhomboids, but I'm only going to work the rhomboids with the client face up. And I'm going to do cross-body mobilization with their arm and dig my fingers into the medial border of the scapula, and then do mobilizations and do PNF and things like that. I'll create these weird systems for me to approach things. Just as a challenge. And then I'm like, oh, that actually worked a lot better than my normal approach that I do. So I just kind of keep that one in my most used tool spot on my tool belt. Yep.
It's funny how you not only learn things through classes and whatnot, but you also learn things by just experimenting and trying.
Yeah.
And you're limiting yourself if you are one of those therapists that just you follow your routine. I got my routine. This is the way I do it. There is someone for everyone, right? There's a client for every therapist for every client, and every therapist isn't right for every client. That's okay. Yeah. And it takes a little bit of an ego check to hear that message. They didn't like your massage. Yeah. It's not because you were bad or you gave a bad massage.
It just wasn't the right one for them.
The massage you gave just wasn't for them. They just didn't care for it. Yeah. You could cook a perfectly delicious dish and someone is going to try it and say like, meh, I'll pass. Yeah. So, giving your clients and yourself that grace, that it's okay that you don't have to be the right therapist for every single client. Yeah. That it's okay. And again, it's things you learn through experience. If I would have been told this as a lecturer in massage school, it would have went in one ear out the other.
No, agreed.
So
I think I was actually told this lecture in massage school. Yeah. I remember one of the first times where I had a client just outright say to my face, "I hated what you did. I don't know why you're licensed." And it like crushed me.
I feel like they could have.
It was massage envy. Like I wasn't the clients weren't the most tactful in a lot of their approaches because it was also in Houston, in one of the most affluent areas of Houston.
Gotcha.
And it was like a lot of old oil money were coming into the massage envy. So it was a lot of like. I feel like a lot of the clients that came in didn't necessarily see service industry workers as people. It was that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And like it crushed me. It absolutely destroyed me. I think I was like maybe 19 years old. Like first massage job was at Massage Envy.
Oh my gosh.
Getting paid $15 an hour in 2010. Like that was good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And yeah, no.
See, I had really demoralizing experiences like that when I was working in customer service jobs and waiting tables and things like that. But I've never experienced anything like that as a massage therapist. Actually, not to undercut you, but when I was in my first or second year, if it was the second year, it was right at the beginning of the second year. So right around my 1 year mark in the field. I was working at a spa and I had a client who came in who was probably in her 80s, and she just a client. She came into the spa, she did her thing, I did my thing. And I was waiting in the hallway for her when she came out of the room to leave. And this 80-something-year-old lady just walks up to me and she puts her hand on my arm and she goes, "You found your calling." And she left. Yeah. And I just believed her. I just believed it.
Yeah, so I get that. Like I've definitely had experiences like that too, where clients have been like, "This is your thing. It is obvious. I'm happy you're doing it. Can I book out for the next 6 months?"
Yeah.
Like that's legit been a thing a couple of times.
I've had way more of those than the negative clients.
Exactly. And I think that part of the issue with that one specific client I had down in Houston was the massage school I went to. It was a 500-hour program. I think we spent 110 hours on advanced clinical approaches. Mm-hmm. Most massage schools took that as like deep tissue, trigger point, things like that. The school I went to took it as myofascial release, structural integration, active release, things like that. So I was doing highbrow clinical work as a new graduate.
And for the layman, I will just say deep, how do I put this delicately? Deep, uncomfortable work. This is the more painful side of massage, where they're like shoving an elbow into you and then like stretching your arm around while they do it. This isn't the spa, gentle, relaxing stuff.
Which we learned that. We learned it in more of a clinical sense of like, this is how you move blood. Our core curriculum for addressing pain patterns was things like we learned orthopedic tests for identifying which muscle in the rotator cuff was dysfunctional and causing pain at the insertion site. And like we learned all of this. So I was applying that information to a massage envy client who wanted a full body deep tissue relaxation appointment. So like it was definitely an issue of me not communicating what I was trying to do effectively, and him not, necessarily speaking up and being like, "No, this is not what I want." Mm-hmm. It was a whole bunch of miscommunication, and like it was a very obvious situation of I was not the right therapist for this client.
Sure.
And I think even now, like I wouldn't be the right therapist. Like I can do that kind of a massage. That's just not what I normally do. It's not how my approaches are focused nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's something to keep in mind. I don't even know why I went on that tangent, but apparently I did.
Well, we were talking about life lessons.
Oh,
I think the lesson that, it was tying into the ego of the therapist, and that every therapist isn't right for every client.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it also takes a certain amount of maturity to be okay with that.
Yeah.
As a very young therapist, a situation like that would have crushed me as well.
Yeah.
So I think this episode is reaching its end. So before we leave, Kai, I did want to ask you one more question. What would you say as a word of advice to either a massage therapist that's just starting out, or maybe a massage student who's just starting school, or they're just about to graduate? What advice would you give to a prospective massage therapist?
I mean, obviously I have to say don't stop learning, because you should never stop learning. The moment you stop learning is the moment your practice dies as a therapist. That's how I see it.
I agree.
I agree. Just find something that interests you, like a modality, a specific approach, and just learn everything you can about it. I really drilled into MFR for a while, like myofascial release. Yeah. And I did all the certifications, did all the things. I'm certified in, I think, 3 different flavors of it at this point. And I don't use it a whole lot anymore, but I can pull that tool out when I need to.
Yep.
And just find something that really speaks to you, both professionally and personally, in your heart, and just go for it. Just learn it. Just even if you can't afford to take a class,
there's a book you can read somewhere. There's a video on YouTube somewhere. There's something.
Yeah, you can find the information. You can even book an appointment with a therapist in town that does that, and book that specific appointment with them. Be like, I want to learn all about manual lymphatic drainage. Give me a session, please. I have these things going on. Let's talk about it. Yeah. And you'll essentially have a captive audience the entire time, and you can kind of grill them for information. I did that a few times.
Definitely have been there. Yep.
Yeah. No, I've definitely done that, and that's been something that has helped sustain me as a practitioner for so long. Yeah. How about you?
Well, first, I just want to add a little detail onto something that you were just saying. You said you were recommending to them, don't stop learning, find something you're interested in. You recommended picking a modality or something. I would just broaden that. And I would say, generally, when I'm trying to teach my students what we mean when we say to specialize in something, generally what I tell them is pick something, pick a condition like frozen shoulder or sciatica or whiplash or TMJ or headaches or carpal tunnel or brachial plexus impingement. So pick a condition and then take a bunch of classes on how to treat that condition. And you position yourself in your local market as saying, if you need a massage, you can go to anyone. But if you have sciatica, this is the person you need. If you have headaches, that therapist is the one that specializes. So a condition or a population of people. So we could talk about pregnant women. We could talk about runners. We could talk about athletes. We could talk about the elderly. We could talk about infants. We could talk about animals. Anyone ever heard of equine massage? You want to go massage horses? So you pick a population of people and then you dive in and you figure out what they need and how can you meet those needs. And that's how you specialize. The third option would be you pick a modality, like Kai says. So you pick a framework within massage, such as neuromuscular or myofascial release or deep tissue, trigger point work. You can be getting craniosacral. You can go into the spa side and just say I just want to do relaxation stuff. Show me how many different aromatherapy oils I can use.
Or hot stones.
My personal favorite. My personal fave. You pick a condition, you pick a population, or you pick a modality, and then you just dig in. And that is how I would recommend you separate yourself.
Yeah.
Now, on to my advice. Probably a lot simpler than Kai's advice. My advice is going to be simply trust yourself. Trust your intuition. Trust your guts. Whether you're a massage student trying to get through school and you're nervous about taking the NBLEX, or you're a seasoned therapist who just maybe you have a client with a condition you've never treated before, or as I've had since moving to Portland, conditions that I haven't quite heard of before, and I've got to do a little Google search and figure out what's going on. Trust yourself, trust your knowledge, trust your instincts. I think that by giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and by giving yourself the grace, that you trust your own instincts, I think that will carry you pretty well far in your career. So that's the one thing that I've stumbled the most in my career, was when I wasn't trusting myself and I was second guessing or doubting myself. So just, you're smarter than you think you are. You know more than you think you do. You've got it more than you think you've got it. Trust yourself, especially with the NBLEX. Guys, students, I'm here to tell you that is not an easy test. So trust yourself, trust your instincts. When you go to sit for that exam, I promise your teachers have done a good job. I'm pretty sure you're going to be ready for it. But doesn't stop us from second guessing ourselves.
Yeah, no. One of the biggest test taking tips I like to share with students and things like that who are preparing to take the NBLEX is the first answer that feels right is
probably wrong.
Yeah. Go with the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially on the NBLEX, because of the way some of the questions will be worded and the kinds of answer options they'll provide for you. It's very common that the correct answer isn't listed there.
Yeah. It's the most correct answer.
Yeah. You've got to pick the one that's most correct, which is infuriating. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But trust yourself, and if it really feels like it's a no-brainer question, it feels like a really easy one, trust that. Yeah. Trust that. You're probably right.
Yeah. Man, I think we're golden.
I think this wraps up our newest episode of the Massage Room. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here with us. So good to see you guys.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.